One second. Alrighty. We're recording this so we can send it out for those who were unable to make it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Matt Lundy. I work for SLA Management, as you'll see on the slide that I'm sharing my screen with at the moment. I'm the Director of Development for SLA Management for the Northeast, and with me is my colleague, John Dickel. He is also the Director of Development for SLA Management. And if it's okay with all of you, I am sure there will be questions at some point throughout the presentation, but if we could hold off just till we conclude, that would be great, just because, especially with these kind of online formats, it can get a little bit much to start and stop. All right, take it away, John. Just introduce yourself if you'd like.
Hello, my name is John Dickel, and I work for SLA Management as a Director of Development. And we are the business partner for the AESA that does food service management. And we are very grateful for the partnership we have with the AESA.
Yes, thank you guys for organizing this. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, we're going to get into kind of what the situation is that we're in at the moment. We are in the midst of an emergency, but it's kind of flipping the script on everything that we've learned to this date. And we're going to examine a little bit more on our past experience a little bit later in the presentation. But essentially, what really distinguishes this emergency from others? The first, people aren't dispersed. We are staying at home. So as opposed to a other natural disaster, people are coming to us for food. So unlike during a natural disaster, FEMA is not going to mitigate this process. So there's no focus point or crucial point of compliance when serving food. It is important, though, that as this is an ever fluid situation, that we keep vigilant records on adjustments, how we plan or prep our service. And in case you need to clarify that, because obviously this is still government-fed or government feeding, so we need to make sure that we can clarify any discrepancies if it comes later. There is a waiver because at the moment, I imagine and you'll see some of the slides that present how we are distributing food, there are food safety issues that we have to worry about. One of them is a big one that's also a part of compliance, which is the milk. Typically, every meal we offer milk, but in this scenario, we are confirmed that there is a waiver because we can't confirm that every site is going to be able to have the infrastructure or the resources to properly handle and or store that dairy. But how do we get all of this fun and really adaptive work into action? Well, we have to create the demand, because if people are staying at home, how are they going to know how to get their food? How are they going to know where to go? I'm based in New York City. John there is based in Florida. In New York City, they're doing a very unique style. There's many hubs throughout the city where it's for emergency feeding, but you really have to present that somehow. So in New York, we're seeing that news on New York One. We're seeing social media presence. John shared with me earlier, there are districts that are going live on social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, talking about the time that they'll be available and the location. And really, that's how we get the audience of today. There's so much of a desire for news that people are sitting on their computers, their personal devices, or their televisions, just desperate for feedback on how the situation is changing. So engaging them on all of those avenues is how you're going to get the word out to present the opportunity to get food at these emergency feeding sites. So big one here, social distancing. We've all heard it. We've all seen it. We're all hopefully doing our best to engage in it ourselves. But the main part that we instituted at first is, okay, drive-through meal service. Similar to any kind of drive-through food service you're currently experiencing, whether it's Chick-fil-A or Burger King, it's just upping the ante with safety measures. As you'll see in the couple images, these are actually from feeding sites in Louisiana that we are operating. You see the masks and the gloves, but we're really just focusing on the main problem, getting people fed and getting families fed. So one of the priorities that John's going to take over now is we saw the implementation of this grab and go option with drive-through stops, but John, take it away with bus stops and how that impacted our service.
So what was really cool is one of our partners that we work with, one of the districts we work with, we actually partnered with them on a dual design. We did a drive-through model, and we basically set up tables in the parking lot. And as parents came through, got their information, parents and students, and we handed them meals. Really, what made the strongest impact and the biggest bang for the buck, if you want to call it that, was coordinating with bus stops. So the district utilized School Messenger and reached out to all of the parents in the community, and also social media and also the local media, and told them they were going to be delivering at their bus stops on their normal bus routes. So parents and students were at the bus stops, and at each bus stop, the driver would get out. He had coolers with the bags in it, and he would distribute the bags to the parents and students based on needs. Drive-through was averaging 50, maybe 100 a day. The bus stops were averaging over 2,000 meals a day. So bus stops were definitely the best methodology for that client.
Excellent. So all these stylized methods of service, they are crucial, but the one thing that we cannot do this without is our people. And so I just want to give you a glimpse of some of the folks that are helping us out, the boots on the ground, if you will. In the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, you're going to see Keith. He's one of our area managers for Central Florida. In the image, you'll see he's actually rented a U-Haul to transport excess food from one site to an emergency feeding site that was unable to have their normal provider provide that food. Up top, you have on the left, you have our New Orleans team, and on the right, you have our Lake Charles, Louisiana team. And these folks, obviously, they're hearing all the same news that you and I are. In Louisiana in particular, it is a hot spot and with a lot of unknowns, if you will. But these people are embracing the idea that there's a higher calling in this situation, and it is to make sure that everybody can see this through. And the one way we do that is making sure they all have food. Once again, we're just going to give you some numbers here. So in Louisiana, in the state, in the month of March, we were able to feed 50,000 breakfasts and 50,000 lunches. Florida, 16,000. Tennessee, 14,000. So obviously, in the large scheme of things, this is a bit of a drop in the bucket, but we just saw the opportunity and the need, and we got to work however we could do it. And we're learning and adapting constantly. So, John, if you want to take us over how some of these other people might be helping us out, that would be great.
So what's really cool, as Matt kind of referenced in the first slide, under normal emergency management, and many of us are accustomed to emergency management in our districts where we have to operate a shelter. So whether it's hurricane, tornado, flood, fire, those kinds of things, we have people coming to us. We have to feed them at a school. And usually in most states, American Red Cross operates it. So it's kind of an unusual partnership that has to work for. What's really interesting is the unlikely partners that come out of something like this, out of a virus where there's a stay in place order. Referenced the district that we worked with where the buses and the drive through. What happened there was districts and charters partnered together. It's a district where there's not a lot of love between the charter and the school district. They partnered together for the good of the community, which is really cool. The bus drivers that delivered the product were actually privatized transportation bus drivers. And they stepped up to the plate and went out there and delivered meals and had volunteers from the community come and help, which was really cool. So volunteers jumped on the buses and helped distribute. They set up tables and things like that for them. Very helpful. In some markets, they're actually delivering at home and in some markets using third-party companies like FedEx, where FedEx is delivering five 5 days worth of meals, breakfast, lunch, snack, and supper in a single box unit for households and the number of boxes for students. So I think that's really cool that they're able to do that and that FedEx is thinking outside the box. Some folks are using Uber as a methodology, Uber Eats to deliver, and some folks are actually using local restaurants, and local restaurants are doing it as part of their normal delivery cycle and normal delivery driver. One of the oddball things that comes out of an emergency like this is with pandemic planning, a lot of districts need to be aware that local health department may actually come to them for something as bad as a place to have to put folks that pass away if there's an overloaded burden on burying folks or things like that. So that was actually something when I was a director of a district that I was approached by the local health department during pandemic planning many years ago, of the what ifs of what if it overwhelms the system. So in emergencies like this, there's a lot of unlikely partners.
Excellent.
So some of the challenges that you can anticipate. Staffing can be a challenge, especially in something like this. Typically, we structure our teams with one staff member for every 100 students. This is new territory, so sometimes staff is going to be impacted. Sometimes you might have to have staff work on a Sunday that they don't normally work on a Sunday because they're prepping Sunday for Monday. A couple methodologies to have people come, because one of the challenges right now, I think, for staffing is many people are being paid to stay home. So how do you incent them to come in other than trying to reach out for their, the benevolent side of them, that they know that this is a noble thing, that they're trying to make the right thing. Many districts do double pay. So in an instance where FEMA reimburses, FEMA actually will mitigate that double pay. They'll actually pay the double pay. In instances like this where it's USDA, still a little gray area that USDA is reimbursing for this. USDA will only reimburse on the per meal rate. But because it's a national disaster, there may be ways to mitigate that through FEMA. There are some districts that actually put into the food service contract for the workers that they are required to work emergency management feeding at any time. Manufacturing has been overwhelmed by this, between a reduction in personnel to be able to work, to be able to produce the items. And there's a lot of demand right now for what we refer to as value-added items, pre-made sandwiches, pre-made, pre-packaged meals. So one of the things that you want to be able to do is, if you can do an advanced emergency planning and have some of these value-added items already either in inventory or already in your distributor or manufacturer's minds that these products have to be available for you in a case of emergency, that's great, and that's really helpful. Some of the others I talked about, there's a company that produces products called meal breaks and breakfast breaks, and they're pre-packaged. All they need is a beverage choice to go with them. Many of them are shelf stable. So whether it's in a situation like this where it's a virus and it's shelter in place, or whether it's a hurricane and you might not have electrical to keep items cool, that may be a great solution for you. Delivery is probably the greatest challenge of all of these, is how to get the products to the people. And like we had shared before, some of the best ways to go about it, busing is a great way of doing it. The grab and go model is a great way. And using third-party carriers is another good methodology.
Excellent. Well, bottom line, we are at the end of our presentation, but the bottom line we wanted to share with you is this is uncharted territory. We're using the experience we've built up over the last 16 years of being in business and having a large presence in the Southeast where there are other natural disasters, but we're adapting as we did then and we are now to the needs of each and all of our communities. We're always as nimble as possible, even if it's normal service, and in this current climate, it is absolutely necessary because we're always focusing on the big picture, keeping families fed. And don't forget, hand washing is your best defense. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
This is John Bass, the Chief Operating Officer with AESA, and I would like to thank SLA. We appreciate what you're doing right now. We know this is a challenging time, very uncharted territory. We're fortunate to have folks like SLA Management as business partners that are able to help feed kids at times where they may not be getting meals any other way. And so we appreciate what they do. We know that SLA is in many of our member states, and if you are looking at managed food services, SLA, we would put them up there and say, give them a chance, give them a call, because you can see what they're doing in times of need, but they have quality service throughout the year, and we appreciate their partnership as part of AESA.
Thank you, John. Very appreciative. Anybody else? Well, John, did you have anything else? I guess we don't have any other further questions, but we'll definitely finish this recording and send it off to you folks at AESA to have. But any other stuff going on?
And I would encourage anyone that has additional questions, if they've listened to the recording and seen the presentation from the webinar, if they have any questions, that they can direct their questions to info@slamgm.com, and we'll connect that email to the recording as well, so that everyone has it for questions.
Awesome.
Very good.
Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. I know that time is less than limited always, but in these times even more so. I hope you all stay safe and well. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. Take care of yourselves and be well.